Mr. President, First Lady, distinguished guest, it's my pleasure to be here tonight with you to celebrate this award-giving ceremony. Let me first share a small anecdote with you. As we look to the future and the new legacy fund, it's fitting that we remember some things of the past. When President Kennedy was in office, it appeared as if Namibia was about to become an independent country because the United Nations had made, I believe it's a resolution, passed it, and we thought that at that time, Namibia, as an independent country, would need new leaders. And a very large contingent of Namibian students were brought over here to the United States to be educated at American universities. So when independence came, they would be available in leadership roles for their own country. President Kennedy believed that that was one of the best investments for the United States to make. You may recall that that's not the way history decided the fate of the country, because South Africa challenged it by taking the issue to the International Court, and the technical issue was whether the United Nations was the successor agency of the League of Nations. Of course, they lost the case in The Hague, and the government of South Africa defied the international community and the International Court and simply decided to ignore this decision. And that sort of continued. If you remember, Namibia got its independence in 1990, so there was a quarter of a century of a hiatus between that decision of the international community and the independence. When President Johnson came into office, we had here in the United States these wonderful Namibian students who had come or had been brought here, in a sense, with scholarships and student visas, and they couldn't go back. We couldn't send them back, nor could they be employed. And it was a very, what shall I say, very demanding humanitarian problem. And I remember that was around the time when I got on the board. I remember the time that one of my first tasks was to go and call on Secretary of State Rusk and explain to him what the issue was and seek a solution. He was very touched by that. And I remember the Attorney General at the time was Nick Katzenbach, and between the two, they concocted some form of solution which allowed these young people to remain here for the time being and gain employment and continue and be available for later. I just mentioned that story to emphasize once again the long history of AAI in the field of education with Africa and Namibia. But my function tonight is a delightful one, because I have to give the AAI 2015 Lifetime Achievement and Distinguished Alumnus Award to the Honorable Hage Geingob, one of AAI's alumni, a distinguished one. It is particularly fitting because Namibia became independent. It was a child of the international community, but it required the dedication and the courage and the leadership of Namibia, the SWAPO, and it took, as I mentioned before, 25 years for Namibia to achieve this independence. President Geingob has a distinguished history. He started as a teacher. He was the SWAPO representative at the United Nations. He served as a political officer and director of the United Nations Institute for Namibia and headed the Namibia Institute in Zambia. He was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, and in a sense, the Thomas Jefferson of his country in writing that Constitution. He was the first prime minister for many years when Namibia became independent in 1990, then became Minister of Trade and Industry, and then today he is the third president of Namibia, an independent Namibia, a democratic Namibia, and a country that is setting an example of good governance for the rest of the continent and the world to see. He studied at Temple University. He has a Bachelor of Science from Fordham University, and only last week was honored by his alma mater and given a doctorate of humane letters to recognize his achievements. It is really my privilege to present on behalf of AAI the 2015 Lifetime Achievement and Distinguished Alumnus Award to somebody who richly, richly deserves it on the basis of who he is, what he has done, and how he has done it. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Maurice. Nigerians always lead us in many things. And one I like is that instead of, as we do at UN, to acknowledge all the dignitaries, I will just say, as I will do, recognize the two former presidents, President Obasanjo, President Mogai, Vice President of Botswana, current one, and our lady, our sister from State Department, Honorable Greenfield, the Assistant Secretary for African Affairs. Then they just say, all protocol observed. It's a great honor to stand here to be recognized as a person who did something that will warrant him to be given a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was not my intention to come to the United States. I was supposed to go to Ghana, I think. I had a UN scholarship promise. And I accompanied my friend from Mozambique, who went to see a visiting person from State Department, I think, in Kinshasa, that time Congo Leo. That is in 1964, before many of you were born. And I was sitting in a corner, and they discussed the possibility of Mozambican students and so on. Then he asked me, are you also from Mozambique? And I said, no, I'm from Southwest Africa. He said, don't you want to have scholarship? And I said, no, I already have a scholarship. But I didn't believe you were serious. And then, what are your qualifications? Then I told him what little I had. So you are better qualified than those Southwest Africans whose names we got. So if you are interested in, I said, now there is another guy who is better qualified than I was. Then two of us came, fill out the forms. And then I don't know of any student whose scholarship was approved by Secretary of State, Dean Rusk. Now that I know administration, how it works, maybe he didn't even see that cable. Somebody maybe did it and just said Dean Rusk. But to me, I thought I was so important that, that my scholarship was signed, capable to say, give them scholarship, but I didn't ask. And I'm not going to change that view because it was his name used. So that's how I came to this country on the 3rd of April, 1964. And we went to Lincoln for testing, and thereafter placed at Temple University. This is a high school, actually, to make up for deficiencies, English, mathematics, and science. We did that in 1 year, then I became a diplomat. I came to New York. I had to be here close to UN. And at Fordham University, I had to invoke the memories of that great friend of mine, Dr. Patrice Malady, Thomas Malady, and his wife, Margaret. I took her to my inauguration, and she was also there. So he kind of helped me to be admitted to Manhattan College, a smaller college. And at that college, a strong liberal arts college. Greek literature, Greek philosophy, Greek history, Greek arts. And I said, Dr. Malady, I didn't come here to study Greek literature or so on. I thought I came here to prepare, to get skills, to go back to my country, to run the country. Now, what is this Greek business? So they said, well, you're in a wrong school, maybe. So they sent me then to Fordham, the bigger university, and that way I could choose. That's what happened. That's how I came here. AAI scholarship. Of course, we finished. I got my BA degree in 1970. Then I started to work at the UN. I went to new school. It's an interesting fact here. I went to new school, and since you started to get jobs, to throw around your diploma and certificate, before I could get diploma, I got a job at the UN, political appointment maybe. So I forgot that I'm supposed to set for my master's, orals and so on. But I did mention that in the job application form, that I have master's degree. The UN people are very diplomatic and say, you have forgotten to file your diploma, master's diploma. So I said, wow. I went to new school. Lucky enough, they had orals in April. That was in February. I went to register, sat around to review my notes. But I'm always lucky in life. There is this Cheltenham publication, quarterly, and they had review of all courses I took, reviewing the behavioral sciences and all this kind of thing we're studying. I locked myself out of my cubicle at the UN and just went over that. Went home to my flat, again, just went over that, closed the books, trying to answer imaginary questions. And I went there. And after the interview, I was invited to enroll for a PhD. You see how good I was? Anyway, I didn't take the offer. Then I was at the UN, then I was sent to Lusaka. The rest, I think Tempelsman told you. But what is important about this evening, I would like to thank you. You are not honoring me only. It's all of us who sacrifice. You see, you take education for granted, many of you. In our case, we had to walk. I was not going to end the struggle, armed struggle to fight. There was nothing like that time, in 1962, when I left the country. It was for education. And I will tell you, I walked once 5 days and 5 nights in Botswana. We got lost. The situation got so tough. Our plane we were supposed to take, so ANC hired plane, was sabotaged. Lucky enough, while it was still on ground. So what I was saying, the underground railway was blocked. We couldn't go anymore to Plumtree. So we said, let's just walk, man, to Zambia, Livingston, from here through the park. I didn't know there was a park, Wangi. Was it Wangi? Yes. We walked and we got lost. We just ended up in Maun instead of going to Zambia because the communication was poor and so on. So that's just for education. First time I was sleeping in a bush, trying to get water. We were thirsty. Small bag I was carrying, you had to throw it, it was too heavy. But it was thirst for education and knowledge. 5 days and 5 nights, ended up in Maun. Elephants standing there, muddying the water. You sit behind a tree, hoping they could disappear so you can dive in to drink because the queens. So that's, I would like to say, you don't take your education for granted if you get a chance. So that's why some of us, while we were doing 2 things, I was a petitioner at the UN, terrible experience. I was telling my wife, showing her the places, how I was coming like a criminal, being checked, allowed in, get a day pass to petition on Namibian question. And then I used to like this one. After you told them how people are suffering there and so on, they would say, we would now like to ask the distinguished petitioner to withdraw. Apparently, I must withdraw so that they can discuss my country in my absence. That used to kill me. But that's the situation. Until I was put in the secretariat, and I was sitting in one of the meetings that Theo Ben Gurira took over from me. He was asked to withdraw as a petitioner. He left, and then there was a girl called Barbara Walters or somebody from UK. Not the Barbara Walters, famous. There's a young British lady who used to work on African affairs. She presented her case, and she remained. And I got so angry. Here is a British girl asked to remain, and SWAPO representative was asked to withdraw. And I took it up with SWAPO and African leaders, ambassadors. And lucky enough, we had Chilean ambassador during Allende's time. So he took it up, and that's how SWAPO got observer status. So Gurira was lucky he got observer status because of my fight. So that's what happened. So really, rest is a history. You were told by Maurice how I studied while I was a full-time student, how I was asked to go and train Namibians in Zambia. And today I will tell you, those people we trained in Zambia with the UN assistance, today I talk about it at the UN, that they set a national program when Namibians were prepared. And I'm telling you, Chief Justice was trained there in Zambia at that institute, Deputy Chief Justice, Minister of Justice, Minister of Home Affairs. I mean, when you talk about the permanent secretaries and middle-level managers, they came from there. So in the national community, as I said, midwifed Namibia. I was thanking them all, and I must thank you all. People like Maurice, people like Frank Ferrari, may his soul rest in peace. He was a key man that time in AAI. And coming from Africa, from the bush, you guys were so nice to us, helping us. Didn't have a country. Nigerians were around, my friends. So this is a secret, my wife, it was long before you. So don't take it up on me. So when we were going out, young fellows, and we were tall, some of us were tall, and I don't know, handsome, but okay. Then some Nigerians are short. Then they will come and say, that's a refugee, he doesn't have a country. And but he's from Africa. Thinking Africa is just one continent, you know. No. So anyway, those were the days. So that's why I always joke about my Nigerian brothers, you know. They had cars, good cars with refugees. So they say the root of education is bitter, but the fruit therefrom is sweet. So I benefited from that bitter root. Now today I'm enjoying the sweets of freedom, democracy, everything. So thank you very much.